Welcome to Entry Point Faith. Join us each week to discover fresh meaning in the world and find faith your way. Now, here is Pastor Nancy Lafferty.
October 29th of last year, I stood up here and openly declared my admiration and love for all things Ted Lasso. If you weren't here or don't subscribe to Apple TV, I need to quickly explain that Ted Lasso is a series and Ted Lasso is the star. The short summary is that Ted Lasso is an American football coach who ends up coaching soccer, which is called football in the rest of the world, for a fictional team called AFC Richmond. The owner of the team is Rebecca, who is focused on enabling the team to fail despite her unfaithful ex-husband, Rupert. The entire series has been a source of inspiration to me. Back in October, we talked about the power of positivity. For part 2, I would like to share the insight on second chances that I received from the show. Before I do that, though, I do need to do a public service announcement. There may be things that people have experienced that may be unforgivable, like trauma or abuse. I am not a therapist, so I am not educated to be able to say when or if forgiveness is necessary in those extreme situations. I do know that there are many less traumatic situations where forgiveness can be helpful to both the forgiver and the person being forgiven. I also know that Ted the person and Ted the show not only advocates for forgiveness, but they take it one step further to convey the magic of giving second chances, meaning it's not just about apologies, but it's also about reestablishing trust to the point where we put our faith in that person enough to give them a second chance. Because I really not only like happy endings, but also happy beginnings and happy middles. One character in Ted Lasso was not a favorite for me. His name was Nate. Now remember, I watched it more than once, 4 times. He starts out the series as the AFC as Richmond kitman. The kitman is a position that takes care of the players and their equipment. Almost instantly, Ted recognizes Nate as an important member of the club in simple ways, by asking and then remembering his name, and asking for his thoughts on football and the game. Now, while his position was relatively low in the hierarchy of football, Nate had great ideas that contributed to the team's success. Ted may have realized this early on because he gave Nate a level of respect that Nate had not experienced previously. Despite this, Nate repays his kindness by ripping up a poster in the locker room that was the club's inspiration for the season. While Ted easily forgives Nate, his friend and assistant coach, Coach Beard, is not as easy to forgive. An article by Susan Krauss Whitburn in Psychology Today, she talks about 4 things that forgiving someone and giving them a second chance can do for the forgiver. Number 1, you feel happier when you give someone a second chance. A cross-national study supported research that suggests that being generous with forgiveness pays off in terms of your own emotional benefits. Number 2, people can change. People can learn from their mistakes, and when you give them a second opportunity, you allow them to demonstrate this. Some of you may know I spent most of my working life in human resources. In my opinion, a good HR person is focused on the development of people, not the punishment of them. Of course, there are things that people are terminated for immediately, like drugs or alcohol or stealing on the job. This is called being terminated for cause. But there are also mistakes people make that are forgiven as long as the employee admits their mistakes and works towards better habits or behaviors, like being late to work. We had what was called a progressive discipline policy, where there was a verbal warning, then a written warning. That's because we had hope that through awareness and coaching, people could improve. We found that at least 50% of the time, giving someone a second chance, combined with that coaching and support, proved very successful. Number 3, It's practical and it saves emotional energy. You gave your mechanic the job of fixing a defective valve, and now it's broken again. You could hire someone else to fix the fix, but that person will know less than the mechanic who tried to fix it the first time. Or your previous romantic partner may have done things to cause you to break up. But when you start with someone new, you're back to square one. Once your anger subsides, pushing the reset button on the first partner may just give you greater insight and appreciation for the relationship. Number 4, you'd like people to treat you the same way. Turn the tables and imagine that it's you that needs the second chance. Wouldn't you feel better if you were given the opportunity to try again? In Matthew 18:21 and 22, Peter came up and asked Jesus, "When a sister or brother wrongs me, how many times must I forgive? 7 times? No," Jesus replied, "not 7 times. I tell you, 70 times 7. In my opinion, parenting requires the skill of giving second, third, and yes, 70 times 7 chances, with a whole lot of those second chances being between the ages of 13 and 23. That's great. Before he was married, my son Hank, who along with his wife and son now live with me and Dave, was once picked up from his university after dropping out and making some pretty serious mistakes. On the way home from the university, we dropped him off at the local Dairy Queen with a few necessities and told him to figure it out. I will repeat that they now live with us. Second chances. I am not even sure how many chances we've given that boy, but we see growth and maturity, and he has truly shown strength when given second chances. I think being a grandparent is actually kind of a second chance. Being a parent might just be practice for being a grandparent. Most of you have met or seen my grandson Zane, who occasionally comes with me to church. A few weeks ago, I was taking him to see his very first movie at the theater. We were going to Flick's Brewhouse, where you can eat more than just popcorn. We started talking about this a few days before the movie. He was so excited. We were going to Paw Patrol, which is his very favorite thing, with the exception of the solar system and planets. You all know him, right? The morning of the movie, I told him that I would pick him up right after pre-K, and we would go straight there. Now, we're also potty training, so I wanted to make sure we could do that last bathroom stop before the movie. We were both really excited when I picked him up. We were about halfway there when he said he wanted to go home. Now, if my kids did that, I would have gone ballistic, probably yelling at them about how much I paid for the tickets and how we'd been talking about this all week, and I may have even said, if I have to pull this car over. But this was my second chance. So I tried to figure out what was going on in his head, and I asked him if he was scared. He quietly said, "Yeah." I explained that what the theater would look like and what was going to happen. I explained that we would order food and we sit in big comfy chairs in the theater while we watch the movie on a gigantic screen. Apparently staying calm and trying to figure out what's going on really works, because he was great. He was really excited then to see Paw Patrol. We got to the theater, took care of our bathroom details, and found our seats. Then we ordered our food along with chocolate milk for him and a big glass of wine for me. He was patient through a lot of previews for the upcoming movies, and finally the movie started. Life was good. He saw all his favorite characters, and there were cameos by the solar system and meteors. I was practicing my Nana of the Year speech when it happened. One of his favorite characters was in trouble. Her name was Sky. She is the pup that has the superpower of being able to fly. The bad person had taken away her superpower, and she was in danger. As soon as this happened, Zane became adamant that he really wanted to go home. He was close to tears. Again, the younger me would have said something like, "You are going to sit there and watch this movie, and you're going to enjoy it." That convinces him, right? Instead, I could tell that he was afraid for Sky. So I told him I knew for a fact Sky was going to be fine. I told him I was sure she would get her superpowers back and rescue the city. Of course, I didn't really know that, but there was no way a kid's movie was going to have a bad twist. So I went with my gut. He felt much better and wanted to stay. The movie ended without incident, and we left with a tummy full of popcorn and a heart full of gratitude that I got the chance of making a difference in the life of a child. The world is full of Nates and Hanks and Zanes who need a second chance. Truth is that each one of us is a Nate or a Hank or a Zane. Let's do our best to offer the gift of a second chance to others. Amen.
Thanks for listening in on this week's discussion on Entry Point Faith. You can join the Entry Point Faith community in person every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. at Conner Prairie in Fishers, Indiana. For more information and a transcript of Nancy's messages, visit entrypointonline.org. Entry Point Faith is brought to you in partnership with mypodcast.media.